This is the Resistance.
What's up, everyone? This is the Tin Man with the Worldwide Resistance Network. If you are watching this, you are the Resistance. And welcome to Tin Man TV. Yes, everyone, this is Tin Man TV. I, of course, am the Tin Man, Chris Sheldon with the Worldwide Resistance Network. If you are watching this, you are the Resistance. Today is April 1st, 2026, and we will be covering the aftermath of the No Kings protest. And do bear with me because we are now streaming through Rumble. I'm trying to make sure that everything is working properly. So do bear with me 1 second on that front while I refresh X, because it's saying that we are not presently streaming to X. And if that is the case, I'm going to be very pissed off. No, it's actually streaming. Okay, never mind. Okay, we are good on this. We are good on that front. Excellent, excellent. Excellent. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Yep. We are always growing, always expanding, always trying new things and trying to reach more people. So on that note, let me just go out and say it. If you like these broadcasts and you agree with what we're saying and what we're covering, share the live feeds, share the retransmissions. Costs nothing to share that. It costs nothing to follow us or like our pages on X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and soon to be on Discord as well. Okay? Costs nothing to follow us on our social media platforms. Costs nothing to fuck up YouTube's algorithm by liking our pages and also hitting that notification bell to be notified anytime we go live, which is fairly consistent, 11:30 a.m. Wednesdays and Saturdays. Wednesdays is Tin Man TV. Saturdays is your, of course, roundtable. Currently with me and Revin. Connor's pretty much taking a step back to handle some personal stuff in his life. He's got his martial arts school that he's opened with his daughter, and so he'll be taking a step back and pretty much just reverting to a supporting role and just popping in on occasion as a guest on the shows periodically. But we wish him well. Hopefully he'll be able to come back full time at some point. If not, he's always welcome to pop in as a guest. No problem. Nothing but love for Connor. And yeah. And last but not least, check out our online store. We have got tons, and I mean tons, of great merchandise. We've got I'd say over 50 items. In fact, let me just go ahead and show you. I'll just go ahead and we will pull it up right now. Where the hell is it? Okay, where is that? Weird. Why is it not displaying? Weird. I know what I'll do. I'll close that. There we go. There it is. Sorry, a little technical difficulty there. Again, we're just getting this all queued up and sorted out. So do bear with us here. Yeah. Support us at our online store, REALTWWRN, printify.me. Tons of great merch. We've now got the Resistance is Now poster and t-shirt. The Jesus versus Genghis Khan poster and stickers. We've also got the new Donald Trump gas stickers. If the prices go up, they go up. Along with tons and tons of great merch, including our No Kings protest shirts, TWWRN, exclusive merch, you name it. I've probably got it on this motherfucker. But speaking of the No Kings protest has just passed, but you know there's going to be another one. So if that's your cup of tea, go ahead and get one of our No Kings shirts. We got them with the X, we got them without the X, and we got them in exclusive white and other colors for the low price of $22.99. You're not going to find prices better than that. You might find a sale from somebody for a few days that's going to have it marked down. But after that, their prices go way back up to 30s, sometimes 40s. Our prices are always in the low, $22.99. That is literally as low as we can go. So if you want the best merchandise for obviously the best price, check us out, realtwwrn.printify.me. Help support the broadcast and help us streamline this better. Maybe I can hire a production crew to work in the background. I don't know. Get something going here. But either way, we want to make this the best broadcast that it could possibly be and reach the most people that we possibly can. So whether you're checking out the online store, sharing the live feed, or following us on our various social media, support the broadcast and help keep us on the air and growing and reaching more people. And on that note, let's go ahead and jump into the No Kings thing. That was kind of a mess. The No Kings protests. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and bring that up on my phone here. I'm going to read to you the exact articles here, because it's downright bizarre. Now, according to reports, on March 20th, 2026, the third No Kings protest opposing President Trump's administration policies drew over 8 million participants across 3,000 plus U.S. and global locations, claimed by organizers as one of the largest single-day demonstrations. The rallies focused on immigration and the Iran war, with major events in Minnesota featuring high-profile speakers. Now, I have no doubt that there was probably a large turnout in places like Minnesota and other major areas. Los Angeles saw incidences while most of these protests were largely peaceful. Police in Los Angeles deployed tear gas against a small group after reports of projectiles leading to arrests. And apparently this happened after the protest event was over. Some people refused to disperse and it became an incident. But I have no doubt that there were some very large events. I don't know that they actually exceeded the amount for the last protest, because the last protest was relatively small. And I would say from my experience that this protest was actually even smaller. The first protest naturally being the largest, but I'm wondering if overall, if the protest numbers haven't just dropped in their entirety, because I didn't see a whole lot of people out there. It was relatively small. The last two times, the first and second protest, Victoria Broderick, the prospective candidate, Democrat candidate who plans to run against incumbent U.S. Rep. Scott Disjarlia-Las, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, in 2026, spoke at the No Kings protest at the first and second, but she was not present at the third. So I don't know if maybe she's dropping out of the race or whether she just felt that it wasn't big enough to warrant an appearance and subsequent public speech. But she had used the protest as part of her campaign strategy. And I spoke with her briefly at the first No Kings protest. And I can't say that I wholly disagree with a lot of the things that she stood for. She to me, and this is just seemingly overwhelming consensus, at least for people in the South, don't see they align themselves with the Democratic Party, but aren't, I would say, woke Democrats. Maybe more moderate conservative in hindsight. They do cling to a lot of the policies that the Democratic Party prides itself on, opposing Trump, regardless of any good or bad that he does, just opposing Trump for the sake of Trump. I've noticed that as a common thread. But as far as like their ideals, their Christian identity, pro-family and all that, it doesn't really seem to line up with the Democratic socialist ideals. A lot of people would say that they align themselves with the Democratic socialist ideas, and that's their prerogative. But I'm not really seeing that here in the South, and I can't say that I saw that from Victoria Broderick. And I can say that I did agree with her on some points. There does need to be immigration reform to where applicants for citizenship is more streamlined and practical and within a reasonable time frame. I can understand there's a lot of people would have caveats with the way the current immigration and citizenship process is handled, and I can agree with that, having seen that firsthand. It's kind of problematic, kind of unnecessarily drawn out. But on the flip side, I would say that things need to be more efficient with the handling of the deportation process, and that's where a lot of people have grievances with ICE. And a lot of people are bitching about ICE with the whole Renee Good thing and the other guy, whatever his name is. A lot of people are saying that this is government overreach and abuse of power and no accountability. And a lot of people could argue that, but you also got to wonder, is this also a psyop and a psychological warfare test to see how much the populace will tolerate, to see how much the powers that be can get away with before they see legitimate pushback. And you can say that these are legitimate protests, but most of these organizations are funded by Soros. Soros has dumped millions of dollars into these projects. No Kings, Black Lives Matter, so on and so forth. He has been a front runner funding a lot of this. A lot of the signs you see, most of the signs I saw at the event in Winchester, Tennessee were homemade, but at some of the bigger events, you see signs and stuff that were professionally made. This isn't spur of the moment protest. And when it comes to Soros, all you have to do is follow the money. Okay, there's a paper trail a mile wide. So it begs the question, especially with the low numbers we saw at the Winchester, Tennessee gathering and other subsequent gatherings. Yeah, you may have had big numbers in some of the larger cities, but can we maybe argue, and maybe a lot of people did RSVP on the website and then just didn't show up, but can we maybe argue that the No Kings protest is starting to lose a lot of its steam? A lot of people are starting to see, hey, this guy isn't a king. He won the popular vote. He was elected in an election. Okay, he did get the majority and popular vote. He won the Electoral College. Okay. And a lot of people, even on the Democratic left, are starting to accept the reality that, hey, you know, Kamala Harris was slotted in. She didn't win the primaries. They tried to kick Trump off the ballot in numerous areas. There was a lot of problems with this previous election that a lot of people, including Democrats, are just starting to realize, hey, this just didn't make sense. I may not like Trump, but he did win the presidency seemingly fair and square. So, and he can't run for re-election. And even if it's in war times, we have seen during the war on terror that the presidency can change hands and the electoral process remains steady and in place. So Trump's not going to be able to suspend the Constitution and declare martial law under regular wartime conditions. And we saw that during the Bush and Obama administrations. So there's really no precedence to say that he is a king or a dictator now, or even a fascist. I mean, you got so many arguments regarding fascism and whatnot. It's ridiculous. We've seen the contrast between the Democratic Republican and fascism, and who actually aligns where. But I did see an interview recently. I wish I could find it because I would love to show it. There was a gentleman who was being interviewed, and it was asked of him. He was this young man, and he was asked what rights he had lost under President Trump, and he couldn't answer. The young man could not give an answer as to what rights he had actually lost. Now, we can say under Bush and even Obama with the Patriot Acts 1 and 2 that the Fourth Amendment was heavily eroded and attacked by these bills, and that a lot of people did lose a lot of freedoms because of 9/11 and the subsequent Patriot Acts that followed. Now, you can't blame Trump for that because that came way before Trump. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised to see people trying because you look at ICE. ICE has existed since 2002, 2003. Nobody had a problem with it during the Bush administration. Nobody had a problem with it under Obama, who currently holds the record for the most deportations during the presidency. But yet, Trump and ICE seem to be a problem here because it's Trump. I don't see the logic in that. Now, as far as ICE goes, we know that a lot of these people showing up to these events are paid agitators. We've seen the money. We've seen the paper trails. And it has to be asked, is this a psyop to see how much people will actually tolerate? Or is this an attempt to trigger the John Podesta Civil War? Or both? Now, I can agree with the No Kings protesters and the Democrats and saying release the Epstein files. But here's the thing. First of all, even if Trump released everything and it definitively shows that he released everything, didn't redact anything, just released everything. Didn't redact nothing, didn't hold nothing back. Everything was made public. If that happened and Trump wasn't incriminated, most of these people would still argue that Trump is holding something back, even if it's proven beyond a shadow of doubt that he released everything. They'd still argue that he was holding something back and covering up his crimes. And also, they're screaming for the release of the Epstein files, but say nothing about John Podesta and what happened with the hot tub and Pizzagate and all that, but yet are still protesting and in many cases still advocating for the John Podesta Civil War plan. Make that make sense to me. Okay, it begs the question, is this legitimately about getting justice for the victims and exposing the pedophile elite and bringing them to justice? Or is this just about getting Trump? Because why are we focused solely on Trump and not John Podesta, the Clintons, Bill Gates, and all these others who are implicated in these files? Everybody all these people want to focus on Trump, but the majority of the people who are implicated in these files appear to be Democrat or Democrat leaning. Like, I saw a post last night that said that it was all rich Republican Christians that were implicated in the Epstein files. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't know that Bill Clinton in a blue dress was a Republican. Okay, I didn't know that Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci were Republicans. Okay, they seem to be about as far left as you can get. So there seems to be a lot of projection and deflection here, and it doesn't seem to be about wanting justice for the victims and bringing the pedophile elites to justice. It's just, we got to get Trump. We got to get Trump. Anything. We got to get Trump on something. It's like, dude. It's like, chill. So I can't say that I wholly agree with all of that. Now, a lot of people want to focus on the Iranian war and all of that. You see this image here. Iran government hangs gays, stones women to death, and butchers pro-democracy protesters by the thousands. So naturally, the Democrats side with the Iranian government. Now, even before the Iranian war started, you've seen a lot of pro-Muslim Democrats out there. That is a major thing here. So that is not without concern. And begs the question, if you hold to this ideology, why would you support something that would effectively target your ideology? It makes no sense to me. But then again, it doesn't make any sense that you would push for the John Podesta plan and demand the release of the Epstein files, but say nothing about John Podesta, Pizzagate, and the hot tub incident and all that. I mean, what the Sam hell? What is going on here? And again, you gotta look at these protests. Like, what are these people doing here? I gotta ask, what the Sam fuck is going on here? Like, seriously, what is this? Why do we have frogs dancing? I mean, obviously this is choreographed. But seriously, somebody explain to me what the hell is this? This is just silly. Hey, what is this protesting exactly? What are we accomplishing here? I do not understand what is set to be taken seriously here. I mean, you have Trump. It's to the point that Trump is actually thanking No Kings protesters. Let me see if I can find that article real quick. It was on X. And it was a primary focus in the Explore bar. So let me see if I can find that real quick. Providing the page will load. What is going on with this loading thing? What is going on? I don't know. Yeah, you can just Google it. Trump posts thank you note to No Kings protesters. Don't know why X is running super slow today. Okay, here we go. Found it. Load, please. I click on it. Now it wants to take forever to load. Apologize for the technical difficulties. Okay. This is why I pushed the online store and whatnot, because this is why I push the online stores and everything else, following us on Rumble and all that with the monetization, so that we can get better equipment and make things more streamlined, more efficient, and so on and so forth. Because we want everything to be quick, easy, boom, boom, boom. We don't want to have to wait 5 minutes for a page to load because the internet's running slow. So again, Support the broadcast, share the live feeds, follow us on our various social medias, X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and soon to be Discord, all at REALTWWRN. Check out our online store, help support the broadcast there. Help us grow, reach more people, and upgrade our equipment to where everything is streamlined, nice, and happy. But here's the article I was talking about. Trump posts thank you note to No Kings protesters. On March 28th, progressive groups held over 3,000 No Kings events across all 50 states, drawing in more than 8 million participants who rallied against Trump's immigration enforcement and U.S. involvement in the Iran war. A screenshot from his True Social account reads, A huge thank you to all the No Kings protesters yesterday. I was very concerned a king was trying to take my place, but thanks to your tireless efforts, I'm still your president. Great job. Complete with his signature emphatic style, like repeat letters, supporters hailed it as an elite trolling, while skeptics question if it's authentic, echoing similar posts from 2025 protests. White House goes, all these countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refuses to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the U.S. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait and just take it. If you have to start learning how to fight for yourselves, the U.S. won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil, President Trump. Now, that is interesting to note because Trump has said a few times over the past couple of days that the war effectively should be over within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, my question is, what, if anything, is going to happen? Will Israel back down? Trump may be in talks with Iran. He claims he's in talks with Iran. Iran denies it. But that could also be to save face and also not subsequently put a target on their back with Israel any more than it already is. Because if Israel knew who Trump was talking to, when and where, that person would effectively be a target. And Zero says, yeah, I'm down here keeping up the great work, TINMAN. Are the comments not displaying? They are displaying. They're displaying on Rumble now. So I will not be able to see them unless I move my screen. So let me go ahead and just move the comments over here to the left side of the screen. That way I can have it over here. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to work. I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and disable comments on my end here with StreamYard. But no, they are not displaying here. I'm not sure if they will display on Rumble or YouTube. or even X. I'm going to have to see what happens there. Again, it's just still a matter of figuring everything out with all this. It's very technical. We're essentially using streaming from two major platforms right now, StreamYard and Rumble. We are streaming from StreamYard directly into Rumble, which is streaming to X, YouTube, and Facebook directly. So I cannot say per se how that is working out. So again, it's going to be trial and error for a little bit until I can get it figured out. But moving forward, Sarah, you can continue to engage in the comments, and I will continue to interact. And anybody else who's tuning in, feel free to join in the conversation as well in the comment section. I know I figured out what's going on. The live chat is showing on Rumble, not StreamYard. So everything should be copacetic there. But moving forward in the conversation, I'm currently discussing the No Kings protest and what's happening there, and particularly focusing on the Iranian conflict. Now, a lot of people are opposed to what Trump's doing, and not just with Iran, but all the other subsequent flexes he's done in regards to other countries, Cuba, Venezuela, many other areas of military and resources interest. But a lot of it comes down to this. And I found this video this morning, and I think it really goes good to illustrate what is prospectively happening here in terms of the overall objective. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to that.
With Khamenei out, the world wakes up to the biggest geopolitical reset since the Soviet Union collapsed, and America is positioned to win. Iran holds the world's third largest oil reserves under sanctions. Lift them, and 3 to 4 million extra barrels a day can hit the market, pushing prices down and giving every American driver, airline, and factory a built-in tax cut. A post-regime Iran plugs into the global economy, with GDP set for double-digit jumps as foreign capital floods into a 90 million person, educated, resource-rich market walled off from the West for 45 years. American giants move in to rebuild roads, ports, oil fields, and the power grid, turning wreckage into contracts, exports, and jobs. The shock hits Moscow and Beijing hardest. Russia loses a key ally and faces cheaper oil undercutting its war economy, while China loses discounted Iranian crude and its last foothold on the Persian Gulf as the U.S. Navy locks down the sea lanes. But none of this is guaranteed. The next Iran can look like South Korea, a stable U.S.-aligned powerhouse, or like Syria, torn by factions and burning pipelines, leaving energy markets in permanent whiplash, and the world economy tied to whether Trump's bet pays off. With Khamenei out.
Now that last comment right there really hits the nail on the head. Whether or not it'll pay off. Now, the longer we stay in a military conflict, the more it's going to derail the Trump economy. Now, the Trump economy has effectively already been derailed in theory. And we've already seen that with gas prices going up, which will subsequently filter down into distribution costs, and then subsequently impact stores and other areas. Gas goes up, the cost of transport goes up, and ergo the cost of products and the cost of living goes up overall. It's a subsequent domino effect. Now, Trump's recovery, whether you like Trump or not, even top economists have to admit that the Trump economy was slated to work. But with this Iran war, as top economists and Pentagon officials have warned Trump, a conflict with Iran would not end quickly, if at all, and a prolonged conflict would derail the Trump economic recovery. So, again, I can agree with the No Kings protesters and saying, hey, this Iran war is a bad fucking idea. I can agree with that whole fucking heartedly. But given that we're in it now, how do you pull back? How do you get Israel to stand down? Like the United States, if the United States wants peace with Iran and wants to deal with Iran, the best way to do that, and effectively the only way to do that, would be to put a leash on Israel. Now, whether you like Israel or not, it's irrelevant. This is not anti-Semitic to say that Israel is committed to this military operation. They're not backing down. They've already said they're not backing down. Okay? Trump is talking to peace and trying to pull back. Trump tells Israel not to attack their infrastructure, and Israel essentially flips Trump the bird and does it anyway. So it stands to reason that the only solution, if peace were even a prospect at this point, would be to put a leash on Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. There's no choice about it. And at which point, Iran might be inclined to make a deal and back off their nuclear program. Because a lot of the problem is the conflict between Israel and the rest of the Middle East. So if Iran could see that Israel is being kept under control and that there's not going to be any problems on that front, the Iranians might be a little more inclined to step back from their military and WMD pursuits and just relax because, okay, the threat level is neutralized. Because we got to look at it on both sides. Yeah, I can agree. We don't like the mullahs. The mullahs are bad. Iran's been a major terrorist hotspot. No denying that. Okay. But a lot of the problem has been, at least in terms of military force, has been whether or not Iran could just sit back, relax, and breathe easy without fear of any sort of military action from Israel. I mean, if you can't trust your neighbors, you're not going to breathe easy. Or if you can't feel that you are in a relatively steady situation where you don't have to worry about your neighbors, even if you don't get along with your neighbors, if you know that you don't have to worry about your neighbors, you're more inclined to sleep easy. And if the United States could make that promise and demonstrate it, Iran might be willing to take a deal and relax. If the United States can get Israel on a leash and show Iran that Israel is on a leash and that nothing bad's going to happen, that the Iranians could sleep easy, be chill. Iran might be more inclined to back off and relax. Again, that's kind of a long shot. And I don't know that Trump has the huevos to actually do that. A lot of people have been speculating. I've been speculating this for a long time, that the assassination attempt that nearly took off his ear, a lot of people, including myself, have been saying for a long time, and a lot of people are saying it more and more, that that assassination attempt was actually a warning shot to Trump, saying, you better back down or they're going to JFK your ass. Saying that Trump better back down or they were going to JFK his ass. Now, if that is true, that would explain a lot why Trump had to effectively push for some of his campaign promises, but dial back. And Zero goes, I didn't mean to derail Tin Man. We know what Israel's plan is. They're not backing down. Yeah, they're not. Fuck, where was I? Damn it, Zero, you derailed me again. Ah! Oh, the assassination attempt. He had to come forward with some of his campaign promises, but it makes sense. If he was scared into submission, why he could only go so far, but then had to dial everything back. He had to save face to a point, but inevitably had to dial back and bow down to his masters, who are holding the proverbial and essentially literal gun to his head. And Zero says, what? Zero says, once again, how does nearly getting genocided allow you to get away with whatever you want for the rest of existence? It doesn't. Okay, I think at this point, Zero, that Trump might be bowing down to the powers, the globalist regime, and going along with their system and effectively handling it back to the Democrats so that they can move forward with the woke culture destabilization agenda. I mean, the Trump economic recovery is already derailed. It could have the prospect of recovering, but Trump has to pull out like now. But Iran is saying that they're not in talks with Trump. They're not making a deal. They're not backing down. Israel's already stated they're not backing down. So, and Trump's been caught in like 19 lies at this point, saying that the war is over, the war is coming to an end, it's going to be done this time, that time. And the mullahs and the Iranians, they're not above lying either, and neither are the Israelis. You know, at least in terms of not wanting to show their hands and what's really going on. So this is to be expected, but it also damages credibility. And one has to wonder, what's the truth? Is Trump really in talks with these people? If so, who? And what can we expect from Iran coming out of these talks and negotiations? And will Israel play along? And if not, what is the U.S.'s response going to be to Israel, if any at all? Because again, I think the only way out of this and to get peace with Iran would be to have Israel on a leash and assure Iran that nothing bad's going to happen, that they can rest easy without being attacked. And And I can't say that I disagree with the Iranian people in that. Again, I don't support the mullahs. The mullahs are bad. But I can understand from a civilian perspective and a governmental perspective. If you are constantly in fear of your neighbors and something happening, then you're not going to be too inclined to get off your guard and mount a defense or even go on the offense. So Iran definitely is going to need that assurance that they can rest and breathe easy without Israel doing anything more to them, or that this situation continues or escalates. Unless the situation is assured of de-escalation, I don't see a way out of this or any deal with Iran. Zero says, at least take Trump, look like Trump, unlike the Biden and Kerry mock-ups. The only major difference is fake Trump is a little fatter and less orange. Now, that's a big thing. A lot of people would say that Biden had a stand-in and that it was Jim Carrey. I heard the conspiracy theory on that. I don't know that to be true. And I can't say definitively, but I don't know that it's not Trump that we're seeing on camera. It may, in fact, be Donald Trump, but the man works 16 hours a day. He's running himself into the ground. I am at 41. Can't do that. He's working like 16 to, I think, 19 hours a day or something like that, maybe even more. I think he's like said to only be getting like 2 hours of sleep at night. Okay? If I pull a double, I'm freaking exhausted. I get home from work and I crash and I'm out like a light. Okay, so, and I'm 41. So, for somebody at Trump's age, he's 79 years old. It's impossible. I mean, the man's, I don't know how the hell he's doing it. He must be freaking shooting up energy drinks into his neck or something. I don't know how any human being, especially somebody at his age, can do and keep going the way he's going. So that being said, I do think it's Trump. I think he's just running himself into the ground and into an early grave. And that's saying a lot considering he's 79 years old. So saying the only major difference is fake Trump is a little fatter and less orange. So Israel started this. I thought it was a cartel of Iran that caused us to begin. The cartel was controlling Mexico. There are rumors about that. I don't know definitively how much Iran and Mexico are interconnected there, Zero. But I do know that Trump was starting to listen to his advisors in the Pentagon and his economic advisors and was starting to pull back on this. And Israel said, fuck you, we're going now. You better jump on board. And effectively, for whatever reason, Trump felt that he was left with no alternative and had his back to the wall and had no other alternative but to join in the military strike that Israel was initiating. Because we already had the manpower and the equipment over there to do this, but Trump was starting to pull back, and then Israel said, no, we're going now. You better jump on board. Israel pretty much said, jump and Trump jumped. Now, the question is why? Again, going back to the assassination attempt that almost cost him his ear. A lot of people are arguing maybe that was a warning shot to get Trump to fall back in line because he was opposed to the globalists and now is serving as their puppet for fear of his own life or maybe the lives of his family. I don't know. I don't know. But I would say that even if Trump is an obedient little bitch, I don't think he's safe. I don't think he'd be safe. There's too much hatred towards the orange man. And they want to push for this Civil War John Podesta plan, which would inevitably result in the assassination, or at least the attempted assassination, of Trump during his presidency. So I don't think he's out of the line of fire by any means, and anybody could pull the trigger at any time. So I don't think he's safe, and I don't think it'd be wise for him to allow himself to be lulled into a false sense of security, because he backed down on the Epstein thing, having made the deal with the Democrats and the deep state for them to back down. They promised they would, and then it was a double cross. So I have no reason to believe that whether this is a deal or being scared into submission, that they won't do another double cross and move to eliminate him when the time is right. 0 is 45, is not 47. Obama's VP was not 46. I stand by the words, if South Park made fun of it, it really happened. Why do you think Mr. Garrison wasn't playing Trump this time around? Interesting point. Yeah, the media loves to poke fun of Trump. And I've always been of the mind, if you make it on South Park's radar and they poke fun of you, that's like the ultimate in the celebrity roast. If you got South Park's attention, you've made the big time. You've made the big time in terms of you are as big as you could possibly get if you have made it on to South Park's radar. If you are so big that you made it onto South Park's radar, then you've hit the big time. So I don't know why Trump or any of the administration would have even gotten pissed off about that fact, because, again, it's like the ultimate celebrity roast. Now, let's see if I can do something here. I don't know what that is. Okay. I'm just trying to figure everything out here. Moving forward in this would be the issue of immigration. Now, Trump has taken a very firm stance with his use of ICE, and subsequently, again, was another thing that he backed down about. So I can't say definitively that I don't know. I lost my train of thought here. I can't say that this is really a prevalent issue at this point, as far as the No Kings protests were concerned, because Trump has effectively backed down on that. And yeah, he put ICE agents in place of TSA agents because that whole issue that's going on with funding TSA at this point, which I don't know why that's a problem, because, again, that's something that has really been implemented by previous administrations that came long before Trump. So I think that was more or less under the Bush administration that TSA really got ramped up and airport security got really ramped up. So I don't really know why that would be an issue with funding them, unless they wanted to provoke Trump into putting ICE agents at the airports. I don't know. It kind of seems like a WWE spectacle to me at this point. And I'm kind of like, okay, where's this going and why? But as far as the general issue with the ICE, it's only ever been the whole dynamic of, oh, ICE is killing protesters. Well, first of all, these are paid agitators that are going out of their way to show up in areas that aren't even their hometowns in many cases, and agitating the situation to the point that they get arrested or even killed. Now, whether these killings were justified or not, you could debate that all day fucking long. And you can question as to whether or not this is a psyop to see how much the American people will tolerate and how much the government can get away with. Or it could also be the push for the John Podesta plan and trying to spark that off. There's many angles, and all may be true. I don't fucking know. But again, I can't really see this as being a valid argument outside of an MK Ultra psyop, trying to see how much the government can get away with, or trying to support the Civil War John Podesta plan. Okay, I don't see any logic in interfering with an agency that is doing the same damn thing it's been doing since 2003. And even back then, nobody had a problem with it. Nobody had a problem. The Democrats had no problem with it under the Obama administration. So why now, unless John Podesta plan, and to see how much the American people will actually allow the government to get away with. And of course, you also have the issues of the SAFE Act and wanting to eliminate the prospect of illegals voting. Now, that also includes mail-in ballots, which is really interesting because Trump said that he opposed mail-in voting, but essentially did it himself recently. He's been called out for that. So I've been seeing a lot of that recently. So it's like, Now I know you've had these special elections recently, so that could be what they were referring to. And I don't know if there's any special exemptions for political figures, especially ones with a bullseye on their back as big as Trump has. So I don't know what the procedure would be for an elected official to vote. I don't know. That's something worth looking into. But yeah, it is kind of a hypocritical double standard to say you don't want mail-in voting and then turn around mail-in voting. If that happened, then yeah, that's a rather big hypocrisy. I said, Zero goes, we both know I'm of the mindset that Trump died that day in Butler, Pennsylvania. Well, even if he didn't die literally, he definitely got scared into submission, and the MAGA movement effectively could say you could say that died in that day, prospectively. Yeah, I think your train was going to something about ICE and airports. 01 because of 9/11. Remember, we are fed a narrative as we don't know what's really happening, so we can't figure out what's really happening. Agreed. And that's kind of my precedence here, Zero. Reading the rest of your comments, they're getting away with the Mandela effect, and if that is an effect, what is the cause? Also, I can never accept misremembering as an answer. Everyone has one, even if they'd rather ignore it. Yeah. That's the problem, Zero. We don't know what's true and what's not. Like, Trump's been lying a lot in regards to the war in Iran, which has only served to hurt him. Now, and it doesn't make sense for Trump to do this war in Iran because it's really hurting him. And at which point, again, that's another thing that really kind of weirds me out in terms of the Democrats not supporting Trump in this military effort in Iran, because that's hurting his credibility. Even if you don't support the war itself, you would think a lot of these people would be happy with the fact that Trump is shooting himself in the foot and hurting his poll numbers to the point that it's prospectively going to hand the Democrats the win in the midterm. And that's why there's such a big push for the SAFE Act to be put into effect, because a lot of the voting has been, and it's been documented, a lot of non-citizens have been voting.
Republicans want to rig elections by only allowing citizens to vote. That's right. We believe in election integrity. And that means keeping non-citizens from voting. It's that simple.
Look at this. Trump signs executive order ensuring citizenship verification and integrity in federal elections. Okay. Now, what happens on the state level there? It says President Donald J. Trump is strengthening election integrity by requiring citizenship verification in federal elections and tightening safeguards on mail-in and absentee ballots through secure procedures. Only citizens should decide America's future. So, I mean, you got him signing this executive order, but then begs the question, why, if he is opposed to mail-in voting, did he mail-in vote himself? I mean, it's kind of an oxymoron there. But are we going to want, what does he want to do exactly? Does he want to get rid of mail-in voting, or does he want to make it more secure? I mean, I think in-person voting should be the only way. Personally, I think a lot of people would agree with that. Because if you have to verify your identity that you are a citizen in order to vote federal elections, how do you do that with mail-in voting? And what do you do in regards to things like the truckloads of ballots that were brought in for voting all Democrat and vote and pre-filled out for Biden and whatnot? And it doesn't make a lot of sense to have mail-in voting in all those regards. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's highly questionable as to how successful even that executive order would be. And I personally think that it should just be in-person voting, because I don't see how you can have a voter citizenship verification via mail and a mail-in ballot. I don't understand how that would work. So, and with the Iran thing, it doesn't make sense that the Democrats wouldn't be celebrating Trump's shooting himself in the foot on this. Yeah, I mean, I understand they would want to avoid supporting the war, but you think a lot of these people wouldn't be out there protesting it, considering Trump is literally handing them the midterms here. I mean, you have even got Nick Fuentes saying that you should vote Democrat. But yet you still got these people protesting, and though the numbers are greatly reduced, there still was a lot of people out there. And I remarked on it that they're opposed to war, they're opposed to violence and all this, but yet are chanting no peace until they get what they want, which is a democracy. And I don't think it's a democracy in terms of a democracy being the country being a democracy rather than a constitutional republic, or that democracy is under threat. I think when they say they want democracy, I think it's the supremacy of the Democratic Party, a cemented hold of the federal and state level by Democrats. I think that's what they mean by they want a democracy. They want things to be democratic. I think they mean they want it to be run solely by the Democratic Party. That's my personal opinion on the matter. And because most of these people, a lot of these people cling to the idea of democratic socialism, which socialism and is a segue into communism, and most of these people fully admit they want communism. And communism and even democracy don't go hand in hand if you really think about it. Because communism is a control system, whereas a democracy is 51% or better and still has some of the innate liberal values of not liberal, liberty-centered values, I should say. You know, the constitutional values. Whereas socialism and communism pretty much repeals the constitutional values. So we can't say that they're wanting a democracy as much as they're wanting for a democratic hold on the federal and state government. And that's pretty much my takeaway on all of this. That's because that's really the meat and potatoes here. So lastly, it now needs, we've come full circle and it has to be asked, is this whole movement going to continue on? Because we see all these double standards and kind of the oxymoron of a lot of the arguments from the No Kings movement. but you're seeing numbers decline. And yeah, you may have seen more people RSVP on the website, but was that necessarily the numbers on the street in terms of who all showed up at these protests? I mean, I have no doubt that the Memphis No Kings protest was probably a lot bigger than the Winchester, Tennessee. Same with other major areas like Los Angeles, New York, and others. So those bigger cities are probably going to see bigger turnouts regardless. You're going to have big turnouts, but did it exceed the previous protest by 1 million? Maybe in terms of RSVP, but were there really that 8 million people at these protests worldwide? Especially on an international level, because how much of that actually is actually relevant to most of the world? Yeah, a lot of people are being impacted because of the Strait of Hormuz in a lot of these other countries. Maybe they're protesting that. But what is the point of a protest in a foreign country if your government is powerless to have any semblance of an impact? Okay, like seriously, what can the European governments do against the United States government? Okay, there's no jurisdiction there. And the whole purpose of a protest is to demand change. So what can the governments of these other countries really do to affect change in another country? It really doesn't make sense to me. It says, I'll see, moving that. So getting away with the Mandela effect. You'd think that Zero goes, you'd think that if we can find the map of Greater Israel, Trump knew about it before us. Yeah. I mean, the Bible itself outlines what Israel was when after the Battle of Jericho and how it was divided up. It says, I'm against counting mail-in votes after polls close. I mean, naturally, yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what sort of legislation Trump has in this executive order that would effectively prevent that. Very smart people figure out during the French Revolution that no matter how fair you make a voting system, it's still rigged. Flawed may be a better word, but you get the point I'm making. Yeah, I do get the point you're making, Zero. And you're absolutely right. It's going to be very difficult, even with an executive order, to have fair and unbiased elections because somebody's always going to meddle in shit. I mean, even the Democrats argue that Trump rigged the election. Okay. And Trump's saying that the Republicans tried to rig the election. And we've seen the issues that have been had with that. The counting ballots after the polls closed and all that other shit. I mean, yeah, you got to tally up the ballots, but, people having all these mail trucks filled with paper ballots to be processed after the fact, after the polls are closed. Yeah, that's kind of a problem. There's a lot of issues with that. But, fuck, where was I? Damn it. Today is not my day. I'll tell you what, a lot of what it is this damn sunburn. I got burnt like a motherfucker on Saturday. I need to get a hat. And I think I'm going to get me one of my TWWRN hats that says TWWRN across the front. That show a good indicator of who I am, who I'm what I'm doing at these protests, who I'm covering for, yada, yada, yada. So get that. Get me a TWWRN shirt. I'll probably order those later today. Yeah, you can get yours and so much more at REALTWWRN.printify.me. Link is in the description of these videos. But yeah, getting back to the No Kings protest. The purpose of these protests is to effectively demonstrate change. How can you do that in a foreign country when your government has no jurisdiction over what another country does? And in hindsight, even in the United States, what do you really is it really demanding change when it's becoming a redundancy? I mean, you look at the Million Mask March, a very powerful movement right off the bat. Key component of that was the Anonymous Collective. And it was a very big, very powerful movement. But then it just became repetition and tradition. And at which point does the message then get lost in what you're doing? Yeah, you may be protesting something, but at what point does it just go from being a protest to a tradition? I mean, at what point do we sit there and make the argument that this is no longer a protest, but kind of a tradition? That's my concern here. And I think a lot of people are getting to that point, and a lot of people are seeing that things aren't as cut and dry as the No Kings protesters have been led to believe. So even if they don't jump on board with Trump, they're becoming disillusioned. And I honestly expected a larger turnout, especially in terms of people who have voted for Trump who are not happy with his performance at the moment. So that was kind of a surprise that we saw such small numbers. And yeah, a lot of people may have RSVP, but I don't know that 8 million was actually on the ground at these protests. I mean, seriously, who did a fucking head count? Who sat there and counted every single person that came into a demonstration? I mean, you probably got, if you have a large demonstration, who accounts for all the people out of Los Angeles or Minneapolis, Minnesota demonstration? I mean, if there's a very large number of people there, who's doing that fucking head count? So yeah, you may have had a lot of people RSVP, but I don't know that they necessarily actually had the numbers on the ground. And at which point, again, I got to ask, is this protest losing steam and becoming more of a fad than a protest? And, kind of is essentially going to go the same way as the Million Mask March. I mean, you had Occupy Wall Street. You had motherfuckers occupy that entire fucking park for the longest time. That was a huge disruption, huge message, huge push. That was a legitimate demonstration. But hanging out in a parking lot for 2 hours once every 6 months? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. It just seems to me that this idea has really just lost a lot of steam. And I'm wondering if we're even going to see another protest this next time around, unless Trump does something outlandishly stupid. And no, that is not a challenge, Trump. Do not sit there and go, hold my beer. Do not sit there and say, hold my beer. Don't do it, man. Seriously, don't. I mean, you've already derailed your economic recovery. You have damaged your credibility and your approval rating to the point that even if you turned it around now, I don't know that the Democrats wouldn't still win the midterms in a landslide, even with your executive order. That's how bad it is. I mean, Nick Fuentes, who is a diehard Republican, is saying to vote Democrat just to spite your ass. Like, seriously, you, Trump, I say this with love, you got a lot of PR work to do in order to turn this around and save face. And lying and continuing on the path you're on is not helping your cause. And I think Trump is beginning to see that and starting to understand that he backed the wrong horses when he was listening to people like Lindsey Graham. So, he needs to really stop demonizing Trump. You really need to stop what you're doing and listening to Israel, listening to people like Lindsey Graham, and listening to the never Trumpers as your base and your support. Start listening to the people that actually backed you and who are part of the populist movement that you wrote in on. And start really listening to these people and what they're telling you, and telling you who your enemies are, who your friends are, and what you can do to course correct this situation. And as far as the people go, we need to push we need to not vote for the Democrats just to spite Trump. If you're a conservative, I say you need to vote somebody, not because they're Republican, but because they genuinely represent what they say they represent. Okay, because you got a lot of people who say one thing but do another. We've seen this in politics throughout the entirety of my life. I've seen this. And it's been going back decades upon decades, even before I was ever born, before most of us ever existed. This type of shit was going on, to say one thing and do another. Campaign promises in contrast to what they actually do in office, like what we're seeing now with Trump. We need elected officials who are about the ideals that they campaign on, and not this say one thing but do another. Okay? And that goes with Republicans and Democrats. You need people that actually represent your values, and not just vote Democrat because they're Democrat, or vote Republican because they're Republican. Okay? You need to vote for people based on the fact that they are the most qualified person for that job, and actually represent and are about and will do what they say they represent and that they will do. It's as simple as that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put the turkey in the oven, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an interesting day, kind of an off day. We're still just trying to get everything sorted out with the technicals on this whole thing with Rumble and getting that all sorted out. So do bear with us. We've got about 99% readout. We were at least on air. We managed that much. Whether the comments will show in on the actual feeds, I don't know. But whatever bugs in the system, we'll get it worked out. In the meantime, again, I'm putting the turkey in the oven. Mr. White Rabbit, having taken you down another damn rabbit hole. I can't say what's going to happen with the future of the No Kings protests and that subsequent movement, whether the whole thing and the John Podesta plan has been derailed or whether it's finding new life. Everything's a coin toss at this point. We're at the point where we don't know what to believe and what to think. So we need to just really start paying close attention and holding our elected officials, especially President Trump's feet to the fire, and get these people to course correct. And when it comes to midterms, we need to elect people that we know represent the values that we ascribe to and that will do what they say they are going to do, and not just vote Democrat to spite Trump, because that's just a recipe for disaster. If you vote for the opposing party just to spite somebody, that's stupid. It's never worked in the past. And I know Nick Fuentes is young, but he's a smart kid. He should know better than that. I know he knows better than that. And maybe he's coming to the realization of that. I don't know. And this is not an attack on Nick. I like Nick Fuentes. He's a very smart young man. But I strongly disagree with his sentiment that you should vote Democrat just to spite Trump. Again, we do need to get the corrupt politicians out of office, so we need to get real patriots, and that whether they're Republican or Democrat, we need real Americans in office that have a vested interest in the American people and not lobbyists and APAC money and all that nonsense. We need real fucking Americans in Congress, the Senate, the state houses, and on the federal level, in the White House, and even on the state and local levels. We need people in office that represent the American people and not the globalist system or their biggest donors. And on that note, I'm calling it a day. This has been the Tin Man, Chris Sheldon with the Worldwide Resistance Network. If you like this broadcast, reshare the retransmission. Follow us on our various social medias, X, YouTube, Rumble, and soon to be Discord, as well as our new Facebook account, all at REALTWWRN. Check out our online store for tons of great merchandise like the bumper stickers and hats, t-shirts, coffee mugs, you name it. Until next time, this is Chris Sheldon with the Worldwide Resistance Network. If you're watching this, you are the resistance. Stay strong, stay safe, and God bless you all, my brothers and sisters. Till next time, peace.